child of 3 years, diarrhea, was admitted in the hospital, and whatever the treatment that is required was given. Luckily, by God's grace, 6th day of admission, child recovered. There was no problem, etc. Still on kind of thing, infection, the antibiotic. On 8th day, again child went into a kind of problem. Doctor felt, how come again, whether any surgery is necessary, that's the discussion. Then he overheard mother saying somebody, no, that Baba gave that thing and I gave, still he has not. Then they asked, what actually you gave, please tell us, because we have to protect not only your child, ourselves also. Then she showed some kind of color liquid. I don't disrespect the woman's faith in that Baba, please remember. I am not here to judge anybody. I am not here. The person has to realize, it's as simple as that. But the doctor was very particular, because when the child is having such and such a colored liquid, we do not know what is that liquid. How far, to what extent? To tell you very frankly, ultimately the baby died 9th day. Luckily, all this he documented, the doctor, stating that today only I realized this particular liquid she was giving for the last 8 days, etc., etc. And he kept that liquid in a sample in the pathology department. When the post-mortem was conducted, they have handed out to the person and they have identified, they said some kind of chemical substance, etc., and which played havoc in the system, and as a result the baby died. Luckily, no doubt the child could not be saved. But the doctor could be saved, because if it is not brought to his knowledge, he would not have done anything. Suppose if he knows, it is his ethical obligation to tell the parents, you shall not do such things. What I want to tell you is, every professional service provider, in terms of ethical obligation, it's very clear that the justification for administering a particular treatment, you must be very clear. And you need to communicate to the patient what are the pros and cons. And the third most important one, what is the expected outcome? Please remember, it may or may not happen, but you need to communicate to the patient what is the expected outcome of the treatment, what you are doing. Under certain circumstances where the doctor himself may say, this is what I think, but I advise you to approach some other doctor. If you want me to suggest, I will suggest. Or if you have any doctor of the known specialty, please take copy of the medical record show and see what is his opinion. Please remember, in medical records, these two are the most significant documents. Number 1, the referral. Number 2, the second opinion. Fundamental. If it is a medico-legal case, all other documents also will follow. Medico-legal case, host of documents ending up with post-mortem report. Because in medico-legal cases, I am sure you are aware, prosecution, police case is fundamental. In medico-legal cases, informing police is not a matter of choice. It is a mandate. There is a referral slip also for that purpose. Therefore, in medico-legal case, trauma case, etc., or RTA, road traffic accident, RTA, etc., all those things will follow a different nature of documentation. Similarly, if it is a clinical trial, what are the documents? There are many, 32 forms are there. I don't think we will be able to remember everything. But 1 or 2 most significant, for example, SAE form, I want you to know. Serious adverse event, either AE or SAE. Because as IEC members, please remember, I am also a member of IEC. As a lawyer, for the last 4 years, most sincerely we are rendering duty. In one hospital, I am the chairperson also. We are in AEC only with one objective and only one purpose. You know what is the purpose? How effectively you can protect the interest of the volunteer. Don't impede the advancement of scientific research, but keep an eye on the participant. That is the reason. I always say, all the ethical committee members, you must know what is the document. Suppose if SAE happens, I am just giving an example. Could be a healthy volunteer or a patient. What do you do? Number 1, and the principal investigator, he has to send a fax to the person notified. There is an address. You have to mention and say, this is the thing, etc. And in the IRB meeting, you have to explain what actually happened, what is the document, what is the reporting, when did you do, and ultimately, what happened to the patient. what kind of care that has been taken. All these things are there. Under certain circumstances, you will be surprised to know that drug trial is to be halted. Because we do not know what kind of impact it may have on other volunteers. In a doctor-patient relationship, either you talk in terms of rendering service, or in a medico-legal case where you render service as a doctor to a patient, but the patient was involved in a particular crime commission, etc. Third, in a clinical trial setting. In all the three settings, please remember, medical record documentation plays a very, very, very significant role. Whenever we say medical record, all these are medical records, starting from the prescription till, in the case of a doctor-patient relationship, either death summary or discharge summary. In a clinical trial, the entire protocol, observation, etc., around 33 documents are there. And finally, suppose if the SAE or AE happens, what kind of follow-up, etc. And if the clinical trial is completed. Friends, 1 hour back I asked you whether you have read that book of ICMR in your folder. You know why? One reason why I want you to read is, many of us, we might have read the original document. Maybe you have not read the updated version. I want you to read updated version because the role and responsibility of IEC has been methodically and radically changed from the original document. You are an IEC member. In such a case, you may become, because you are in the field. No? It is better to know. There are nearly 12 headings are there. The first page, if you look into the content, not only from the constitution, monitoring, interim review, how do you do, what kind of thing. So many aspects have been. I am saying all this is necessary because there also medical record documentation plays a very, very vital role. Okay? In the entire perspective of medical records, many doctors, I am sure you must have heard about this criticism. They always say, no, Jogaro, the way you talk about medical records, etc., at the end of your lecture we feel we should neglect patient, we should concentrate more on records. Many doctors, all my friends, good friends. That's what you are saying. Is it not bad? Why should we concentrate on record? Forget about record. I have to save the patient life. I have to do something about the life of the patient. The main criticism of doctors pertaining to medical records is, this is not individual doctor specific argument. This is a community specific historical argument. Please pardon me, don't mistake me. Doctors, they are very poor in two things. One is writing, another one is communication. You ask them anything else, they are kings and queens. Conduct a quiz, they will number one. Ask them about the subject, they are phenomenally knowledgeable. But ask them to write, no. Ask them to communicate, no. You know why? I will tell you the reason. Historically, I have revised the medical curriculum of 50 years in this country. I realized at no point of time medical record documentation was considered as a curriculum in your studies. Never. Medical record documentation was never taught to the students of MBBS or postgraduate studies as a subject. Second, patient communication also never formed part of your curriculum. Never. As a result, what happened? You concentrated on autonomy, anatomy and physiology. Some other subject. No other. Because now what happened? The doctor-patient relationship now, you take any context, even in the case of clinical trial, for example, as a principal investigator, you need to communicate to the volunteer, right? As a doctor-patient relationship, you need to communicate with the patient. Please understand. Medical record documentation also is important. They refuse to admit the need and significance because of historical reasons. Now what happened? I am sure you must have realized there are so many institutions offering hospital administration and hospital management courses. Have you looked into Medversity, Apollo, Chennai based, now Hyderabad shifted recently. There are so many institutions offering the curriculum of those courses. If you look into, they mention about medical record documentation, filing, patient communication, particularly the doctors who enroll as students of those courses. People started realizing, no, the doctor must be equipped with these two skills. Unless a doctor is skillful in communicating with the patient, not only that the patient may file a case against you in consumer protection, even otherwise in your own promotional activity, that is your own career, etc., you may not be considered unless you are very skillful in communication. People started realizing, healthcare industry started realizing, not merely as a defense of litigation, please remember. As a matter of institutional policy, people started realizing there is a need for proper, adequate, clear medical record documentation. People used to say, lot of criticism of Jogar. No, you say all that. How many pages I have to write? 1 page enough? 3 lines enough? 2 pages enough? I said there is no scale to say that I want 2 lines or I want 20 lines. It depends upon the context. It depends upon the patient. It depends upon the service you are rendering. It depends upon the situation. So many factors to be taken into consideration. Let me give an example. I have some friends from those who work in government hospitals. They say, Jogara, you talk about medical record documentation. Okay? You know how many patients I see in my OPD? I said 25, 35, 65, I said 170. I went to some other doctor, private hospital, which is 60 kilometers away from Bangalore city. How many patients you? We? Lots. No, number you tell me. 3 to 4 in a week. There are no patients at all. There are many medical colleges, I hope you are aware, which are scattered around. Not many patients you get. You take corporate hospital in Bangalore city. How many patients? Yeah, 30, 40 you see, or 25, 30. But can there be a comparison? It is something like comparing orange and Mosambik, apple. What kind of comparison we are making? And we want a legal mandate. How can you expect a doctor who is working in a government hospital who looks after 175 patients? Please remember, with what kind of medical? Does that mean in government hospitals you don't require medical record documentation? The way they manage so many people, it is incredible, I'll tell you. For instance, you mentioned one who writes, the PG student is trained for that purpose. History taking, for example. The student is trained to do that. Some other nurse, some other person, everything. The document is get read. Then the document also you don't go on writing essay 100-mark question paper. There is a pro forma, there is a method, and there is an indication what is to be written. And objectively, precise writing. You don't require a kind of 1,000 words competition. No, that is not what is a medical record. Please remember. I know judges, when we show the record, they look at us, they laugh at me. One medical record I showed. Sir, this is what my doctor has done. He said, this is the thing. Aroma. What is this? What is this? What is this? This is the way you write. And see, what is this? You know, but he doesn't know. I know now, because I started reading all that. Because doctors, they seldom write sentences. Shorthand is far. They write shortest hand. Shortest possible hand. They write one. That's what I'm saying. I said, when judge made fun of it, I explained, please put yourself in the show. What I want to tell you, I am not saying that was created only to mislead a lawyer or a patient or a judge. No. The pressure, the kind of situation, the content, all those things we need to understand. I mean, we are not from medicine. We need to understand. To tell you very frankly, they appreciate that. I said it is not that only my doctor does. Any hospital, every doctor, that's what, because as a matter of convention, they follow that. I am just giving an example to show all these concerns what you have explained, they are genuine. I have no doubt about that. But to a large extent, they are misconceived, because what is required from a law, the doctors are not aware. That is the problem here. See, the major problem in India what we are facing is, as a lawyer, as a patient, as a general public, I say, are you a doctor? You must follow law, ethics and regulation. Finished. That's what I say. But I never bothered whether the doctor knows what is that law he has to follow, to what extent he has to follow, what are the ethics we are talking, whether ethics are being taught in his course or not, where from he gets ethics. For example, you are an IPS officer. I am just giving an example. Where from you got your training? National Police Academy, Hyderabad. Correct? You are an IAS officer. Where from you got your training? Your basic degree is only MBBS. In MBBS, you are not taught revenue laws. You are not constitutional law. But you are given training. Where from you got it? Mussoorie. Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy. For every professional, you say that you have to undergo training. But when it comes to doctor, he is the only professional service provider. He is neither taught nor trained, and he is blissfully ignorant also. But the society expects him to be legally sensitive, ethically obligated, and regulatorily remarkable. How? How is it possible? That is where education is important. Please remember, as you very rightly said, it should form part of the curriculum. Not only that, those who are experienced doctors, those who are practicing, must also be given training. That is the reason why we say continuing education. Why do we say SCME? We say continuing medical education. I think to that effect, medical record documentation is something we need to convey. Please remember, medical record documentation is not merely for the purpose of protecting your interest. Please understand. It protects everybody in the society. For instance, as she very rightly said, if she is referring the patient to a particular specialty, suppose if it is documented, whether she has been referred to neurophysician or not, if it is not written, tell me how do you show? Simple question. Similarly, the person is to be taken up for surgery next day, pre-anesthetic checkup previous day, anesthetist comes and gets the signature, all the kind of thing, etc. Unless it is documented, how anybody can come to a conclusion whether checkup has been done or not? Similarly, when we talk in terms of the entire operation notes, what actually happened in that case? What actually was the problem? I will give an example. Recently we have won a case, remarkable case. I must tell you, I felt extremely happy the way my team has done the research. Remarkable research we have done. It's a simple case, but a remarkable case. 63-year-old person was subjected to hip replacement or TKR, total knee replacement, something like that. First operation, there was a problem. Second operation was done in a second hospital. Same joint. Problem was there. First operation was conducted in Hosmat. Second operation conducted in Apollo, Chennai. In the medical record, those hospital, the doctors who have conducted the second surgery, they have written so clearly, the implant size is 47 what they have implanted. Okay. It ought to have been 45. Because of this, there was a problem, and accordingly, in second surgery, we have redone that mistake. That's what he wrote. Patient filed a case against the doctor. First doctor, naturally, first doctor. We asked the first doctor, hospital. Dr. Chandy said, we have to cull out all the papers. I don't remember what actually happened. And then my team went and looked into all the documents, etc. You will be surprised to know, the operation notes of the first operation, there is one sheet, which was not included in the medical records which were given to the patient. That sheet they have identified. In that sheet it was written, this 63-year-old person had already undergone similar surgery 5 years ago. Okay. Which means first surgery is not first surgery, that is second surgery. While removing that implant, they have identified that was 47. And therefore, they have incorporated 47. That's what is written. You will be surprised to know the doctor, I do not know where from he got this knowledge, etc. He said, no, this is, we mandate that implant size, etc. very, because that's one potential source for litigation, please remember. Because of that sentence in the medical record, we could convince the judge, saying that first thing is that first operation is not the first operation. First operation is the second operation. First operation was held up 5 years ago. When it was implanted, that was the size. When they have removed the implant of first surgery, that was the number. In second surgery, the implant is that number. There is no problem at all. Where is the negligence? Accordingly, it was quashed. Friends, here at this juncture, another important significant information I want to repeat. When we talk about medical record documentation, many people, they reiterate, suggest and appeal to you that medical records must be documented. But the crucial question is, to what extent it is to be documented? Number one. Number two, okay, medical record is available. How far? To what time period you have to keep it in custody? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Okay. And third, most significant one, when we talk about medical record, what are the tips you need to know as healthcare providers? When we say healthcare providers, I hope you are aware, medical records are to be documented not only by a doctor, even by a paramedic. For example, nurse's sheet we say, the entire, even by a person who is doing allied service. For example, in the case of a cardiac operation subsequently, physiotherapist recording is necessary. Or another specialty, anesthetist recording is necessary. Which means every person who is rendering service is expected to record the relevant information in the medical record. Now the issue is, to what extent that information? For example, you take informed consent form. Everybody knows that consent form is necessary, and it has to be in terms of, need not necessarily be, every time doctors ask, should it be in written form? If so, what kind of information? Who has to sign? Whether patient has to sign or witness has to sign. Please remember, all these issues you need to clarify. There is no doubt about that. But that does not mean you emphasize only on consent form. Many doctors think in a very wrong manner, if there is a signature of the patient, that is enough, that will protect his interest. That's what they think. That is a fundamentally misconceived. Let me clarify, a signature on informed consent form only indicates signature on informed consent form. Nothing more than that. Please understand, I am not saying it is not required, it is required, but that does not mean with that you protect your interest. No, it is not a defense. It is not a, no, I got informed consent form, you can't do anything. No. Even though there is a consent form, still, it is not. That is not. The patient can go to the court of law. For instance, lot of cases have appeared before consumer protection, the time-tested process, tubectomy. After 5 years, she conceives, again, same lady, and she delivers. Then she files a case against the doctor who conducted tubectomy. In fact, I had a case 3 years back, a learning experience for me. Judge asked, are you appearing for doctor? I said, yes. You have any witness? I said, I don't require a witness. No, but patient is introducing a witness. I said, I don't know, but let's see what kind of witness, who is that person? He asked one middle-aged woman, maybe 35, 36 years. What is your name? This is my name. Who are you? I am a neighbor of. Then I asked in what way she is related to this case. Then he said, please don't interrupt me, Jogara. Let me complete first. At the end, you yourself will get to know. Then he asked, have you undergone tubectomy? She said, yes. Please pardon me for asking, have you conceived once again? She said, no. Then the lawyer said, see, she has undergone tubectomy, but she did not conceive. But my client, she has undergone tubectomy, but she has conceived. That itself shows medical negligence on the part of the doctor. Remarkable argument. I told the judge, have you heard about recanalization? He said, no. Then I gave an article, I said, this is the thing, that is the thing, etc., etc. That does not mean absolutely till her thing, no. Sometimes it may happen and she may conceive. That does not mean that the doctor is negligent. And there are cases, interpretation, this, that, etc., etc. I am giving this example to inform you, the most crucial aspect here is, when we consider the kind of court proceeding, please remember, popular thinking is different from scientific explanation. Many of us, popularly we may think hazard things, but scientific explanation is very, very significant. To that effect, whether you have communicated to the patient or not, what normally we say, no, there is a possible, no doubt tubectomy has been conducted, but there is a possibility of recanalization, etc. And there may be a case, situation where you may conceive once again. That information is important. Should that be in the consent form? That is the issue. You got the point? When we talk in terms of patient communication, a possible consequence which alters the lifestyle of the person, you need to communicate. For instance, Jogarao undergone bypass surgery. After bypass surgery, Jogarao cannot give lectures. Is he not expected to tell me? Because my lifestyle has changed. Whatever. I am not saying that you list 1 to A to Z, no. But the significant ones which materially, substantially alter my lifestyle, you need to tell me. You got the point. I am saying this requires to be communicated and documented. That is the reason why consent form, a printed consent form is not valid. That's what we say. You know why? Printed consent form is like our wedding card. What is a wedding card? Except the name of the person, invitee, the card remains the same. Our printed consent forms also same thing. The same old thing, blah, 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 blah. And if anything happens, neither doctor, nor nurse, nor assistant, nobody can be liable for whatsoever, full stop. And you get the signature. And the doctor and hospital thinks that, yeah, everything is protected, there is no problem. In fact, I remember recently when Bangalore, my father, who is 80 years old, just for general checkup, I was sitting in the, one patient was, doctor came running. Have you taken signature? Yeah. Doctor was relaxed. He wants only signature on the paper, that's all. Please understand, signature on a paper doesn't indicate anything. Take it from me. However, please remember, informed consent form must reflect the communication. I am not saying that you go on writing. For example, in a given context of medical, doctor-patient relationship, you inform, you communicate, this is what, etc. I have communicated, this is the language he understands, this is what I did, and these are the risks which I perceive. Therefore, at no point of time, neither a case nor a statute mentions that we have to write A4 size 2 pages or 3 paragraphs. No, not at all. Whether essentially you have communicated the risk or pros and cons of the operation or not. That's it. What I am saying is, you don't go by the technicality. No, that is not what the law wants. Please remember, law says informed consent, please remember, either for a particular purpose of treatment or a surgical intervention, etc. It is not even necessary if the patient always, if the patient is not in a position to be receptive, either on account of suffering or on account of consciousness, you take any factor, even attendee, more than enough. But if the patient is conscious, it is for you to decide. Please remember, it is for the doctor to decide. That is where I say autonomy. Please remember, autonomy is to be protected. In fact, Supreme Court made it very clear, what is to be communicated let the judges and lawyers decide. It should be decided by the doctor. A doctor in a given situation, let him. That is the reason why informed consent form is not a printed matter where you go on getting signatures and submit. No, that's not what it is. According to law, informed consent form is a continuous process. Please remember, patient communication is necessary and thereafter documentation is necessary, which is a patient specific, problem specific and context specific in nature. In other words, almost all these medical records, please remember, there are different situations, there are different examples I can quote, where the way the documentation has taken place, it protected the interest of the doctors. There is a lot of misconception among the patients, there is no doubt about that. I will give an example which is something a great learning on my part. Hysterectomy, 38-year-old woman, 3 children, spinal anesthesia. Everything went on well, there is no problem at all. Subsequently, lot of problems, neurological problems, etc. And the husband filed a case against the doctor saying that it is because of spinal anesthesia it has been. He must have taken some other anesthesia, why did you opt for the route, this, that, etc. L3, L4, this, that, so many things. After reading the complaint, I asked the judge one thing. No, I understand their problem, that after operation only she got this problem. That I understand. But he did not tell us because of the operation she got the problem. You understand? You understand the difference? No. I'll give an example. Jogara entered. Rain started. In terms of sequence, Jogara entry, rain started. In terms of time sequence, perfect. But can you say, no, the moment Jogara started lecturing, it started raining? Cause and effect doesn't make sense. Time sequence is different, cause effect is different. You agree? After operation, she developed a problem. As a sequence, I agree. But you have to tell me, it is because of spinal anesthesia only I got the problem. You agree? I said the complaint doesn't talk about that. Complaint is dismissed. They have dismissed the complaint. What I want to tell you is, I understand the popular patient mind. You know what patient generally thinks? Whatever adverse consequence happens, it is because of doctor. Maybe due to consumer attitude, maybe due to the fee what you collect, or maybe due to the amount they spend on health care, or maybe due to my own brethren, lawyers community. When I said brethren, lawyers are excellent instigators. In good olden days, after previously ambulance chasers, you remember? Nowadays they don't chase ambulance. They straight go to nursing home, get a signature and wakalat form and file. Greatest instigators are from the lawyers community. Why I am saying is, patient is subjected to so much of stress and strain. As a result, the patient may not be able to really understand whether there is a scientific nexus or not. They will file a case. That's how the many cases are being filed. That's where we say medical record documentation, scientific explanation, and whatever you are doing which can be ethically justifiable in nature, I think it is absolutely in the interest of the profession. I will give one more final example in medical record documentation. Medical record documentation value I realized in my first case 6 years ago. I resigned from National Hospital of India University. I started practice. Within 3 days, I got a case. One doctor came and he said, I want you to. I said, okay. I started reading this, that. I was teaching medical law, therefore I am quite familiar. The case is very simple. The case is cesarean section. No, I'm sorry for my observation, don't mistake me. Nowadays, normally there are no normal deliveries. Nowadays, normally there are no normal deliveries. Reasons are different. That is a different matter. Okay. Second thing, CS was conducted, cesarean section. On 11th day, she started having dribbling of urine problem. Urologist was consulted, examined, stent placed, ureterovaginal fistula, surgery was conducted, 23rd day discharge, no problem, mother and baby were happy. That is the sequence. Okay? Naturally, wife and husband filed a case against the doctor. Mysore District 4, they have asked for 15 lakhs. The problem I understand, mental agony, this, that. Judge openly said, Jogar, I am not very sure about the subject. But luckily there was a doctor in the panel. I said, doctor is there is nothing to worry, he will guide. Even I am not a medical doctor. Okay, things are going on. He asked, what is the difference between UVF and VVF? Vesico and uretero. I gave the example, this is the thing, that is the thing, etc. Then he didn't understand. Very frankly, normally you don't go to courts, therefore you don't know, I will tell you. Normally, judges, they look at you and all, but they don't understand. Several times happened. I thought he understood. Second question, what we have to do? I said, I will give one more adjournment. Then what happened? No, forget about this uretero problem, Jogaro. Why did the doctor conduct cesarean section? Normal delivery you should have tried, no? Judge asked. I said, yes, you are right. Even as a lawyer, I feel that you should have tried normal delivery. But in this case, the mother had fetal distress. Then he asked, what is fetal distress? I said, fetal distress is a condition where these are the things, etc. Some symptoms are there. Tell me what are those symptoms. I said, FHR is one very important. Fetal heart rate. This is the thing, etc. Then I said, Leica. Okay. Another thing is maybe cord around that. Possible. There are other things also. These are the things. No, I understand. But in this case, whether FHR is less or not, how do I know? Judge asked. I said, definitely, I am sure, searching for document. Because I never expected this question. I thought he will ask me about ureterovaginal fistula. He didn't ask about that. I was searching. My doctor was sitting there. Both wife and husband. Husband is anesthetist, wife is gynecologist. You know, that is the best combination. All over India. Then I asked doctor. She said, yes, FHR was conducted. I said, you have conducted, but has it been documented? She said, no. But not documentation does not mean that FHR has not been conducted. I repeat, not documented does not mean FHR was not done. Then judge said, not documented means not done. I searched all the documents. I said, I am sorry, she has not documented. Then she started giving, no, at that time 12:30, it was raining, night time, nobody was there, this, that, etc. I said, if you say that, he may say that where is anesthetist also. Don't say all those things, let us say. Ultimately, we lost the case, very honestly, but I am very happy. You know what? Great learning, not only on my part, on her part as well. She told me, no, Professor Jogar, I really understand. I mean, he asked us to pay 50,000, that's a different matter, we paid 50,000. But she took it in such a, no, what he said is correct. That sentence even today I don't forget. Therefore, I conclude, my dear friends, when we talk about medical record documentation, first thing is that you need to be contextual, situation specific, number one. Number two, informed consent form, the patient communication. Third, you need not write so many pages, that is not what, is not going to be weighed. The essence is to be written, that's all. If you can follow all these things, I told you different types of medical records, I am sure it is not only in your own interest, I think it is in the interest of everyone. Please remember, patient cannot be forgotten. Patient is an important body of the entire process in healthcare. Even in the interest of the patient also, it is very, very crucial that medical record documentation is necessary. Okay?
I came across a case where mother and grandmother both had given a consent, but very next day I had to face the wrath of the child's father.
Oh.
And that case is still pending. So as you say, the legalities. Now in such situations, is it mandatory that we take the parents, both the parents?
See, as a matter, in fact, this question, not with regard to fetal autopsy, but in a different context, some other doctors posed me this question. As a matter stand, wife consent, no, I'm sorry, woman's consent, wife and husband's consent, it appears only in 3 statutes. One is MTP, second one is PNDT, prenatal diagnostic, third one is Code of Medical Ethics with regard to sterilization. Okay. In all other situations, the law is not very clear. There is nothing like a black and white whether wife alone can give or should we take husband, it's not very clear. But I feel, I mean, because you have raised a very interesting question, I feel in case of fetal autopsy, autopsy is meant to, I mean, is a process meant to give the reason. In no way it affects or hurts the life of the fetus. Correct? Therefore, in terms of advancement of scientific reasoning, if one person's consent is there, I think it should be legal and adequate. That's what I feel. If there is anything to do with the fetus, some genetic engineering, etc., maybe we can say that both wife and husband consent is necessary. But otherwise, I think this should be adequate. I will conclude, I will give a very important case. I mean, the case which literally influenced me in terms of reasoning and objectivity. Lord Denning, this is, you know, heard about Lord Denning? One of the very famous judges of UK. From Court of Appeal to House of Lords, the court case for 11 years, and ultimately Lord Denning gave the judgment. The case facts are very simple. 11-year-old boy to be administered anesthesia, that liquid, etc., something, you know, vial, injection vial is kept in the some liquid, no? And you take that and correct, no? That's correct, no? After that injection, the boy faced a lot of problems, neurological, this, that, etc. A detailed enquiry by the BMC revealed that the vial developed a crack. As a result, the liquid bottle in which it was kept, that liquid crept into, and as a result the boy faced the problem. Am I clear? Now the issue is there a duty on the part of the doctor who gave the injection to see whether there is a crack or not? You know, that's the case. Lord Denning, he rejected their argument. You know what he said? Duty on the part of the doctor can be stretched to such a level which can be reasonably expected of him to perform. Whenever there is a vial, whenever there is, it is taken that it is proper. Unless some kind of, suppose the crack is visible or some other thing, etc. But to what extent you can exercise, enforce the duty? And he refused to recognize the duty on the part of the doctor. He said, no, there is no such duty on the part of the doctor to see that. To tell you very frankly, it shocked many doctors of Indian origin. Many doctors felt that no, that is a wrong judgment. But internationally, the judgment was claimed for one reason. What they said is, the judge was not influenced by any emotion when he was deciding. How far it is practicable, that's what his guideline. And accordingly he decided. You may consider it as good or bad, that's a different matter. But what I want to convey is, when we talk in terms of a duty on the part of the doctor, there cannot be an absolute duty. That's the simple reason why we say duty to take care, but not duty to cure. The duty on the part of the doctor is not to cure. He may or he may not be able to do, but there is a duty to take care. If there is a shortfall of that standard, then you make him liable. Otherwise, nobody will be able to practice medicine because of that. That's the kind of